I'll never forget the night my own father raised his hand and slapped me across the face. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because I dared to ask a simple question. Why had they lied? Lied about losing their house, about being broke, about having nowhere else to go. They spun this heartbreaking story of desperation, while in reality, they were hiding nearly $1 million. And do you know where it went? To my brother. Every cent. That night, something inside me broke. I realized I wasn't their daughter. I was their scapegoat, their safety net, the invisible one they could discard whenever it suited them. But I made a vow. If they wanted to make me invisible, I would show them what happens when the forgotten child decides to fight back. My name is Natalie Hayes. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. On paper, my life looks solid. I'm a senior financial analyst at a respected firm. I own a modest condo downtown, and I've worked hard to build the kind of stability most people would envy. Colleagues call me dependable. Friends say I'm loyal. To the outside world, I look like someone who has it all together. But families have a way of cutting through your armor, don't they? And mine was a masterclass in favoritism. My parents, Marjorie and Thomas, raised 2 children, my older brother, Ethan, and me. To them, Ethan was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets orbiting around him. He was the golden boy, the high school quarterback, the charming dreamer with 100 big ideas and never enough discipline to make them work. Every mistake Ethan made was brushed off as a lesson. Every failure was softened with a bailout. Every reckless decision was painted as proof of his entrepreneurial spirit. Me. I was the responsible one, the steady hand, the one who paid my way through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, who worked overtime to earn promotions, who learned early on that reliability mattered more than recognition. And yet, my role in the family was always the same, the fixer. When Ethan racked up gambling debt, guess who dipped into her savings to cover it, just this once? When Mom needed a medical procedure her insurance wouldn't fully cover, guess who quietly wrote the check? When Dad's credit card hit its limit, guess who transferred money just until the next paycheck? I was always the safety net, always the one who caught them when they fell. And every time I told myself, maybe now they'll appreciate me. Maybe now I'll finally hear those 2 simple words, thank you. But it never came. To them, I wasn't Natalie, the daughter they were proud of. I was Natalie, the reliable one, the background character, the girl they could always depend on, precisely because they never bothered to truly see her. And for years, I accepted it. I told myself family meant sacrifice, that maybe love wasn't about words, but about duty. I convinced myself that being invisible was better than being a disappointment. But life has a way of testing your illusions. You think you've accepted your role, until the day the mask rips away and you're forced to see the truth. I thought I understood my place in my family. But what happened next, what they did to me, would shatter every belief I'd clung to. And it all began with one family emergency phone call that would change everything. It was last winter, just days before Christmas, when everything began to unravel. I came home from work one evening and found my parents standing at my door, luggage at their feet, faces carefully arranged in sorrow. We lost the house, my father announced the moment I opened the door. His voice was flat, rehearsed, almost theatrical. A bad investment went south. We have nowhere to go. My stomach dropped. Despite everything, despite the years of being overlooked, I felt that familiar surge of guilt and responsibility. I didn't even hesitate. I let them in. At first, I told myself I was doing the right thing. Family helps family, right? Maybe I was being too cynical, too hardened. Maybe they really were down on their luck. But almost immediately, something felt wrong. My father claimed my office as his study, spreading papers everywhere, as though he were the one paying the mortgage. My mother criticized the way I organized my kitchen, going so far as to replace my plates and curtains with things she bought, on my credit card. And Ethan. Ethan appeared more often than I could bear. He'd breeze through the door with a smug smile, flashing new shopping bags, an expensive watch gleaming on his wrist. He spoke in that careless tone he always used, bragging about connections, parties, his big opportunities. How could a man with no job, no real career, afford all that? The unease ate at me until I couldn't stand it. That's when I called Scott, an old college friend, now a lawyer. I asked him, just casually, to check into the supposed foreclosure. What he uncovered shattered me. They hadn't lost their home. They had sold it. Sold the house I grew up in for $950,000. And every single penny, every dollar, went to Ethan. To buy him a new house. A fresh start. A future. Me. I wasn't even in the equation. Their plan was simple. Dump themselves on me indefinitely. Use my apartment, my paycheck, my life, as their safety net while Ethan played king. I remember holding the phone, Scott's words echoing in my ears. My hands were shaking so violently I nearly dropped it. That night, I confronted them. Why? My voice cracked as I looked at the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Why would you lie to me? Why give him everything and treat me like I don't matter? The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Ethan smirked, like it was all a big joke. And then, my father slapped me. The sound was sharp, the sting immediate. My cheek burned, but the real wound was deeper. In that instant, I realized what I had always feared. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a resource, a tool, a burden when I refused to play along. Something inside me broke that night. Or maybe, something finally woke up. Because as the silence closed in around me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would never be their victim again. I knew then, I couldn't let them keep using me. Not anymore. That night, as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, the red mark on my cheek still fresh, something inside me hardened. I had spent my whole life trying to win their approval, trying to prove I was worthy of love. And what had it gotten me? Lies. Exploitation. A slap across the face. No more. From that moment, I decided I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to show them exactly who they had underestimated. Step 1. Evidence. I went through every email, every text, every bank transfer. I printed out receipts, highlighted withdrawals, and created a timeline of all the times I had bailed them out. It was like reconstructing a crime scene, and the picture was damning. I wasn't a daughter in their eyes. I was their personal ATM. Step 2. Legal armor. I called Scott, my lawyer friend, and laid everything out. He didn't sugarcoat it. Natalie, what they did might not be criminal, but it's exploitation. And we can prove financial manipulation. If they push you, you can push back harder. So, together we built a file. A thick, undeniable file that showed not only their deceit, but the deliberate way they funneled money into Ethan's hands while keeping me in the dark. Step 3. Psychological warfare. I knew my parents. I knew their patterns. They thrived on my silence, on my willingness to play the dutiful daughter. So I gave them exactly what they expected. Smiles. Compliance. A yes, Dad here. Of course, Mom there. Meanwhile, behind that mask, I set my traps. I let Ethan believe I was about to co-sign his flashy new business loan. I even played along with his smug lectures about how I would never understand entrepreneurship. Then, at the very last moment, I withdrew my name, leaving him red-faced and scrambling. I let my parents weave their tragic tale of losing everything to their friends. They soaked up the pity, the sympathetic dinners, the whispered condolences. But those same friends soon received anonymous envelopes, photocopies of the real estate sale records, showing the $950,000 they had pocketed. The looks on my parents' faces when those invitations to social events started drying up? Priceless. Step 4. The stage. Christmas dinner was coming. The one time of year when the whole family gathered, when Ethan loved to parade his new toys and my parents basked in the glow of their perfect son. And I decided, if they wanted a stage, I would give them one. But this time, the spotlight would be mine. Christmas Eve. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked up the long, perfectly lit driveway to Ethan's new house, the house that my parents had practically gifted him, using money they stole, twisted, and lied for. From the outside, it looked like a picture-perfect holiday postcard. Inside, it was a shrine to arrogance. I stepped through the door, the scent of roasted turkey and expensive wine filling the air. Ethan grinned smugly from across the room, showing off his new Rolex to anyone who'd listen. Mom floated from guest to guest like the queen she thought she was, while Dad sat in his chair at the head of the table, surveying his kingdom. When dinner began, glasses clinked and laughter rang out. Then Mom stood, raising her champagne with dramatic flair. "To family," she declared. "To loyalty. To sacrifice." Her words were sweet poison. That was my cue. I pushed my chair back and rose to my feet. My heart thundered, but my voice was steady. "Funny choice of words, Mom. Because when I look at this table, all I see is betrayal." The room went still. Forks froze midair. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick folder. Calmly, I slid documents across the table, one in front of Ethan, one before my father, and one for my mother. "Ethan," I said evenly, "here are your loan applications, where you forged my name and used my credit to fund your fantasies." His smirk faltered. "Dad, these are your signatures, proving you funneled money into shell accounts. Accounts you pretended didn't exist." His jaw tightened. "And Mom, your messages. Every lie you told, every time you bragged to friends about how you tricked me. About how easy it was to bleed me dry." Her face drained of color. Gasps rippled through the room. My parents' closest friends exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan shifted in his chair, muttering something about misunderstandings. But then came the real twist. The front door opened. In walked Scott, carrying a briefcase. And behind him, two neighbors, their phones out, already streaming live. A journalist followed, his camera capturing every trembling face at the table. "Everyone in this town deserves to know the truth," I announced. Ethan forced a laugh. "This is ridiculous. Natalie's just bitter." But Scott cut him off, his voice sharp as a blade. "Ridiculous? Ethan Hayes, you are already under investigation for fraud. The forged loan documents have been filed as evidence. You may want to save your excuses for the judge." My father went pale. My mother's scream split the air. "You ungrateful child! How dare you embarrass us like this?" And then, something I never expected happened. From the far corner of the table, my grandmother Eleanor, who had been silent for years, stood up. Her voice, though frail, carried more power than any of theirs. "Enough." The room froze. She looked at my parents with eyes full of fire. "You call yourselves parents? You've hidden behind the word family, while bleeding your daughter dry. Natalie isn't the disappointment here. She's the only one brave enough to end this charade." Her words struck harder than any evidence I could have presented. For the first time, my family's golden image shattered. Ethan's cocky grin collapsed into fear. My father, once the commanding patriarch, sat small and broken. My mother's tears smeared her carefully painted face. And me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was the one who finally turned the spotlight where it belonged, on them. By New Year's, the cracks that had been hidden for decades became headlines. The Hayes family name, once whispered in admiration, was now muttered with disgust. Ethan, the golden boy, found himself cornered. His so-called business ventures collapsed overnight as investors fled. The forged documents I exposed became the centerpiece of a fraud investigation. He went from boasting about luxury watches to begging lawyers for mercy. His arrogance had always been his shield, but now it was his downfall. As for my parents, Mom and Dad, the betrayal they'd crafted so carefully came back to devour them. Neighbors who once believed their sob stories now crossed the street to avoid them. Friends they bragged to turned their backs. Every holiday card, every dinner invitation, they all vanished. They were pariahs in the very community they once tried to impress. The family image they polished for years, shattered beyond repair. No amount of denial could glue it back together. But the most profound change was within me. For the first time in my life, I felt weightless. No phone calls demanding money. No guilt trips about duty or sacrifice. No invisible chains binding me to people who never truly saw me. Instead, I redirected that energy into someone who mattered, my grandmother, Eleanor. The woman who had once been silenced at family dinners now had her voice restored. I used my savings to buy her a small cottage by the sea, a place she had always dreamed of but never believed she could have. Watching her step into that home, tears in her eyes, was the moment I knew I had done something right. She finally had peace. And so did I. But peace didn't mean weakness. I wasn't naive anymore. I had learned that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't strangers, they're family. Sometimes the ones who preach loyalty the loudest are the ones who abuse it the most. I had always been the responsible one, the daughter who carried everyone else's weight. Now I was simply Natalie, free, independent, unburdened. And as I stood on the cliffs overlooking the ocean outside Grandma's new home, the cold wind brushing my face, I realized something. Revenge hadn't just exposed them. It had liberated me. This wasn't about destruction. It was about rebirth. The Hayes family would never look the same again. And that was exactly how it needed to be. 6 months later, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I built something out of the ashes. A foundation dedicated to helping women trapped in toxic family dynamics. We taught them how to guard their finances, how to set unshakable boundaries, and most importantly, how to reclaim the dignity that no one has the right to take away. And here's the truth I've come to understand. Revenge doesn't always mean fire and fury. Sometimes it's about clarity. It's about pulling back the curtain and forcing manipulators to face their own reflection. For me, exposing my family wasn't about destroying them, it was about freeing myself. Because blood doesn't make someone family. Loyalty, respect, and love do. And when those are absent, the people you call family are nothing more than strangers with familiar faces. So let me leave you with this. Justice that doesn't make the guilty squirm, was it ever justice at all? What about you? Would you have taken the same path? Or walked away quietly? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your truth.